Dr. Glen,
Yes, sir.
I want to know, how do I know I'm in an unhealthy relationship?
All right, I feel like I'm being attacked right now. Do we
Why?
have an unhealthy relationship right now?
Yeah. How do I know if this is an unhealthy relationship?
We're just going to have to jump in, man.
All right. Welcome to 12-Week Relationships. This is your place for better relationships in weeks, not years. My name is Pye.
I'm Dr. Glen.
When we say relationships, we mean all of them, starting with the one you have with yourself and working on outward. And today we're specifically talking, why don't we focus this in on romances and so marriage, romance, that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of these do translate as well to friendships and whatnot. Funny thing is, usually when we have an unhealthy friendship, it's disconnected a lot quicker than a romantic one.
Yeah, there's intimacy, but it's not at the level of a romantic relationship.
Yeah, so all these things kind of hold true, but at the same time to a much less intense degree. So we'll say that this is mostly for romance.
Lance romance.
I don't know what that means. Did you just use a
That rhymes. You know, like when someone's romantic, you call them Lance romance.
Oh, that was like a dad joke.
It is a dad, because that's my
Dang, bro,
appropriate.
I thought you suddenly got hip with the times and maybe you brought a TikTok joke into this or something.
Nah, man.
No, you just went to a dad joke.
Old school, man.
All right, that's cool. Okay. We have a little list here. This is by no means a comprehensive list. We will probably do a follow-up video to this at some point, but this is a good place to start. Kind of 5 different things to watch out for that will be indicators that you are in an unhealthy relationship. You know I'm on point when, if you guys are watching the video, Dr. Glen just has this it's like a violent nod.
That means I'm dialed in, man. I'm like locked in to what you're saying.
All right. Number 1, Dr. Glen, you put this one down. You do not feel safe in the relationship at all.
Yeah. So if you're in an unhealthy relationship dynamic, there's constant anxiety. There's constant fear, the fear of like a fight happening. There's just constant anticipatory anxiety of what could take place in the relationship.
Yeah, why don't we define out that fear? Because when we say unhealthy relationship, we're not saying right now like abusive / domestic violence, that type of situation. You don't really need someone to tell you that you're in an unhealthy relationship when there's physical and verbal abuse kind of taking place.
That's like an extreme version.
That is an extreme version. So what we're saying here, why don't you go into it? What are you saying about the fear and the anxiety? What is that? What are we afraid of?
Yeah, so technically it's not an abusive relationship physically, but it's toxic and unhealthy, meaning that it's hurting your self-esteem, it's hurting your ability to function.
Yeah.
It's causing depressive and anxiety symptoms. Maybe you're isolating yourself more than you normally would.
Yeah.
But it's affecting your ability to live daily life. And if that's happening, that's a sign that you are in an unhealthy relationship.
Yeah, I want to relate it to moments where we're all about the practical moments, bringing this to the realness. So, for example, you get into an argument and your partner storms out. There's a certain level of anxiety and fear that because you just had a fight, they're done, that they're walking out. That's an unhealthy place to be. It can also be in a friendship where you're just constantly wondering, are we good? Are things okay? You can't get a read on the other person and they're not really giving you much to go off of. So what other situations of fear and anxiety are you thinking?
Maybe you feel like every situation can end the relationship. That feeling of it's just one moment away, or maybe if something good happens, instead of being happy, or this is a norm, there's a sense of relief, oh, okay, it didn't happen this time. But then now you're afraid the following times.
Yeah. I was going to say, you might even be afraid to fight, right? You might even avoid conflict because you're afraid that if you bring up something, that it's going to end the relationship.
Yeah. And then if you're feeling that way, that just means that it's probably not a good relationship to be in.
Yeah. You're on unsteady ice.
Yeah. It's probably emotionally not the safest relationship to be in.
Unsteady ice. I think I'm thinking thin ice. I combined a couple. Yeah.
Thin ice. There you go.
Thin ice.
Thin
I like
ice.
that.
Melting ice.
Melting ice. All right. Number 2, you don't feel understood.
Yeah. So number 2, you're always feeling like you have to explain yourself to the partner. You always have to justify yourself to the partner. you always have to prove yourself to the partner, right? So instead of just having dialogue and conversation and just trying to, gain understanding and build a connection, it's almost like this person's wearing a robe. They're the judge, and you have to prove everything to them.
Yeah, the way that this is very noticeable is, let's say, for example, we're going to go back to our husband-husband relationship right now.
Are we in a role play right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like we need some role play.
All right.
But that aspect of, always feeling like you're misunderstood. I'm going to be the person that's misunderstood, right? I would come to you with an issue. Because I'm not super comfortable with you in our marriage yet, I'm going to still call you Dr. Glen. Dr. Glen, I'd really just wish you would clean up more around the house.
I do clean up.
I just don't feel like you're doing that much.
Prove to me that I'm not doing that much.
Okay, never mind. I'll take care of it.
I did the dishes this morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not really what I mean.
And I vacuumed
mean,
this past weekend.
Yeah, I just mean like more regular stuff, like this morning I got up and I was kind of taking care of all the floors and I was doing this, and I'd really appreciate if you could just kind of maybe do something each day.
Did you talk to me this morning when you woke up?
No.
So you didn't talk to me, so you didn't prioritize me. And then I was still helping out with the dishes and all these other things, man.
I hate it when you play the role of the other person.
But you always,
because you're so good at it.
You always assign it to me, though.
I know,
man.
because like you know so much about this stuff that like you're like triggering me even in a role play, and it's okay. So that is the place we're talking about though, where it's like I'm trying to communicate something basic, and I can't get you just to be like, oh, I got it. I need to do a bit more. My bad. It's like I have to fight to get you to understand each thing. I have to give you evidence.
Yeah, it's a constant fight. It's always proving. And then you have to prepare in your mind, what am I going to say? And if this person says this, like if you're in that state, you're always just going to feel anxiety.
Yeah, there's a different level of this too that I wanted to add to it though. There's the other level of like where you don't feel really understood just as a person. For example, going back to our marriage, right? You don't really know what makes me tick, what I enjoy, the things that I do. And it makes it difficult to have conversations with you because let's say I bring up, something that I'm really into. I'll say jujitsu just to keep this real. I might come home and be like, honey, I got my blue belt today. And if you don't really understand me or what that means to me, your response might be,
great, but that's $100 a month that we're spending.
God damn it, you're so good.
Dude, I'm sorry, man.
Like, you're triggering me in a role play. I don't understand. Yeah, that would be so aggravating because you bring up the money aspect of it and you're failing to recognize that in my head, this has been a 2-year journey. I've been grinding and putting in work and I've been getting my butt kicked just to be able to earn and to get better and to get this blue belt. It means so much to me. And the fact that you just dismiss it, not only do you dismiss it, but you bring up the expense as if it's a waste of money.
Yeah, and then what about me? Because while you're gone, I have to take care of the kids, man. Dude, do you ever think about that? The money expense just for your exercise entertainment, you can go take a walk.
This is true. But what about your sports car? Aren't we paying like $1,200 a month for your sports car?
That's tax deductible, man. So that has to be done.
But even with your tax deduction, that's still $900 a month.
You don't even understand that, man. I'm doing that for us so that we pay less taxes.
How is that for us?
Because we're paying less. And then you're in the car, right?
No, because I hate your ass. I'm not getting in that car with you.
You're showing healthy behaviors. You're showing the contrast, man.
So this is that feeling of, it's not only the fact that you're not understood in conflict, it's the fact that like you don't really feel understood, period. Like the other person isn't celebrating when you're celebrating. They're not sad when you're sad. They're not, they're not really along for the ride.
Yeah. And then, on my side, like that person, like I've seen a lot, they think that they're connecting with you because they're sharing their frustration, but just sharing your frustration and anger is not connecting with someone. You're just sharing your frustration and anger.
Yeah.
Real connecting is understanding, give and take, counterbalancing things. That's real connection.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3, You also added this one. This was the unhealthy power dynamic or power balance.
Yeah. So in that role play, there's two types of dynamics. There's symmetrical communication, which is there's equal partners, and then there's a give and take, and there's a respect, and understanding about each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that jujitsu example, I'd be like, congratulations, that's so awesome. How do you feel about it?
Mm-hmm.
There'd be this give and take. Complementary communication is where there's a power imbalance, and then I feel superior to you, and you need to be here for me. And once a couple's dynamic gets into that place, it becomes really unhealthy, like especially when it becomes extreme because it becomes one-sided.
You're saying that that's complementary or imbalanced?
That's complementary. So complementary could mean, like, for example, you can complement wounds, but complementary communication, like, it should be from a parent to a kid, right? Complementary communication, like, I'm the parent, you need to follow the rules.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
In a couple's dynamic, once it gets to that complementary state where, like, the power dynamic is you need to do what I say, that's an unhealthy relationship dynamic. And that's the product of all the dismissive behaviors and prove to me and show me that this is the case. It shows that you're in a complementary relationship.
And that might come out with going back to the analogy, if you were to continue that and say, you really need to stop with jiu-jitsu, but I'm keeping my car.
Yeah.
You setting the guidelines of, what we're going to do.
Yeah, like if it was symmetrical, I'd be like, yeah, honey, I get it. I got the car, you got the jiu-jitsu. Let's work it out.
Which still doesn't make sense because your car is like 12 times the cost of jiu-jitsu.
Okay, but all right, fine, you're being healthy, okay?
So
I'm so confused in roles right now.
I need a new car too.
You should get the car then. You should get the car. But on the flip side, if it's like, oh, the car is mine and this is stupid and you're not doing this, that's a sign that it's a complementary dynamic. The power dynamics are too unequal.
Yeah. I've seen some fascinating case studies. One was so interesting. It was basically it was this complementary power dynamic where he held the power in the relationship, but he wasn't even the breadwinner. She was actually the one that was making the money. She was the breadwinner. And yet he was making all the decisions on how her money is spent, what's done in the home, what's okay, what's not okay, how we raise the kids. And it wasn't in a good or healthy manner. It was such an interesting, case study to see, like, it doesn't necessarily have to do with your ability to earn or, any of those things. It was strange.
Yeah, it comes down to emotional control. So once emotional control means like who dictates the decisions in terms of the relationship. And once you have a complementary dynamic, it's the person that's always expecting and receiving. They're the power figure. You need to prove to me.
Yeah.
And it becomes expectation over understanding.
And it also comes down to the trauma, the existing, why would she, the breadwinner and the person that is supporting and doing all of this, why would she be okay taking that completely dismissive role in the relationship?
No, absolutely.
Because there is some sort of underlying trauma there that's putting her in that place, that's making her perceive this as okay or maybe even normal.
Yeah, and then the willingness to play that role, right? Like if you're really successful and you're the breadwinner, why in your mind would you be like, okay, this is okay for me to now take this complementary role where I'm just going to take orders and follow rules?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes no sense other than it's a pain.
Yeah, so symmetrical roles are going to look a lot more like maybe one person is still the primary breadwinner. The other person takes care of the home. But they're both working towards similar ends. Their values are aligned and they both agree on what to spend their money on. They both agree on, what they should be doing with the family and how they should be educating. These are symmetrical conversations where each person has like an input on what's going on. And neither person is overvaluing or undervaluing each other's contributions.
Correct. And it goes down to core values and regard, which we talk about over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like the way you put this. You're acting like a drug addict. That's number 4.
Yeah. So usually people that are in an unhealthy relationship, they'll be really frantic with their eyes. And then they give these really crazy stories about how, like, I know the relationship is bad, but 10 years ago, he was really, really good to me. And then they start like, they're very frantic in their behaviors, almost like they're talking about cocaine. Like, cocaine is a hell of a drug. It's awesome. I'm Rick James, bitch, right? And it's so good for me, even though I lost my job. And it makes no sense. But in their mind, like, they're just in this very frantic state. And I've noticed that people that are in really bad relationships, Like on the Zoom, like if I just muted them, they look and act like they're on drugs.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I call that out. I'm like, man, you look and act like you're on drugs.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
I mean, that is in reality what is happening. I mean, your mind is, you're basically on this constant kind of like dopamine rush, coming on and off these different highs of the relationship. And you notice that in different behavior as well, like not only in the way that they kind of explain the relationship, but also in the highs and lows of it, right? There's these crazy, crazy highs, and then you crash, and it's about getting back to the high, and it's about makeup sex. And then we heard a doctor actually give some pretty interesting advice at one point, a psychologist, right? Who said, if you're in that place, just fight, take it all out on each other.
Through sex.
And then have tantric sex
Tantric
afterwards.
sex, and you guys will heal your wounds.
You'll heal yourself.
Yeah.
So I might say, like, I think he's probably acting like that drug addict and giving this advice. But yeah, that was crazy advice. But those relationships where you're kind of on this cyclical roller coaster, this up and down ride where it's just highs and lows, it's a very clear indicator that it's unhealthy.
Yeah. And you're basically, a drug is bad for you and you're addicted to it. The relationship is bad for you and you're addicted to it, right? And then what do drug addicts do? Like they always talk about 10 years ago when I first used, it was the best feeling in the whole wide world. And I want that feeling again. And then relationship wise, they'll go like 10 years ago, he or she was so great. And I remember those moments and it keeps me going. They're just in this addicted state.
It's funny because I can think of my own relationships that would fit that bill. And I know exactly that moment. The moment when it first starts and the high is just so incredibly high. Yeah. And then you continuously chase that high throughout this.
But it never goes back to that.
It never goes back to that. And you almost, this is the scary part about that. You can break up. So I recognized it very quickly, right? Namely because like I was already in the process of the research and kind of like learning and I'd come through my divorce. So I'd learned a few things. But I do remember the first, it only lasted like, it was 2 weeks and then a couple days off and then 2 weeks and then I was done. I was like, I can't do this. So it was all in all about a month. But I remember during that period, the highs were incredible. The lows were also incredibly low. Mm-hmm. And when you fast forward away from it, if you allow, this weird thing happens with time and memories where like as time passes, you kind of start to forget about the bad moments and you kind of just remember the good ones, if there were good ones, right? And so nostalgia plays this trick on you where you think, oh my gosh, we had some incredible times together. And then you maybe get fooled by nostalgia and you try it again. And you just run the pattern all over again. It's like coming off that drug, being 8 months sober, and then suddenly taking another hit.
Romanticizing it again.
And going back through it all over again.
Yeah. That relapse prevention. Oh, I got it under control now. I'm going to go back. It wasn't so bad. It's amazing. And then you're just down in the hole all over again.
Yeah. So it's a weird thing because as time passes, you have to remind yourself that nostalgia is playing a trick on you. It's not, it isn't what you think it was.
You're overvaluing, instead of looking at it in totality of what the relationship was or is, you're overvaluing and just focusing on the pseudo positive components.
Yeah. Isn't that a weird thing though? Like why is it that time sort of allows the kind of the good things to rise to the top, even if the good things was 2% of the relationship? Time kind of makes us think that that's all there was, even though underneath that is 98% of just guck.
No, it's true. Like it shows how determined you probably were to try to make this relationship work.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, trauma, whatever the reason.
The other aspect of that drug side though is, it's also not a good thing when you can't be away from the person, right?
Yeah, because it's like a drug, right? It's not good for you, but you're constantly seeking that person out. And basically, this is what I've noticed. People that are in this state, they don't want to leave, but then they'll just continuously like seek people out to argue with them. Like, oh, you deserve better. You should be happier. And like, yeah, but then he does this and this. He does this for me 10 years ago. But you're so much smarter than that. And then they're just an emotional leech taking energy from you because ultimately all they care about is making sure that they can stay.
Yeah, well, that's your next piece, which is that, number 5 was essentially constantly thinking about leaving the relationship, but then we're going to talk about that. But I mean, like on that previous note, that acting like a drug addict in a healthy relationship dynamic, both people should be comfortable and okay when they're away from each other. Like they trust each other, they know each other, and they're good.
Yeah.
And they should be happy and good when they're together. And there should be a desire to be together, but there should also be a desire and being okay with being alone as well. But when you're addicted to the other person, you can't be alone. You have this feeling of codependency, like I gotta call him, I gotta be with him.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that next time together.
Yeah, so that distinction of like a healthy relationship, I'm gonna miss that person. Of course I'm gonna miss them, but the other one, an unhealthy relationship, you're having withdrawals.
Yeah.
You're
for sure
needing to see this person again. That's a drug addicted state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wild one because when you're in that place, you have to think of the brain kind of being trained just as if it's taking a drug, right? Those dopamine hits and the rushes that you're getting and all that kind of stuff, the chemical, it is the exact same thing as the drug.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting it all and your brain is responding with those chemicals. And when it's disconnected, when you're separated, you get the same withdrawal. I mean, you will feel the most incredible lows in that place. I've been there myself. And it felt like, I've never, used drugs to a point where I had a withdrawal like that. But if I could relate it to anything, it would be withdrawal, like full on, I'm incapacitated and I can't function.
Yeah. It feels like death almost, right?
And you just want to get a hit.
Yeah.
Like if I can just have a phone call, I'll feel better. If we can just text, I'll feel better. Don't cut me off. Like if we can just email, I'll feel better.
Yeah, it was like Anthony Bourdain talking about like getting paint chips when he was on, he was withdrawing and he did the paint chips to try to snort it. Like that's how desperate you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So in that place, if there's that, that discomfort of being alone and all that is not a good place. That is a very strong sign of an unhealthy relationship. And then your last piece was that, you're constantly thinking of leaving, but you don't.
Yeah. So it's this dichotomy, like in your mind, you're like, man, I know I should go. But then when you talk about it with other people, and then I'm like hesitant to say it because I don't want people to take this the wrong way. But when you're in an unhealthy relationship and you keep justifying it, you're in the beginning stages of building a personality disorder, right? Because
tell me what you mean by that.
Like the core of a personality disorder is basically like, you grew up in like a very abusive home. So then things are chaotic and there's drugs and, let me go back. So any person, when you grow up, you'll do things that were familiar when you become an adult. Maybe you move back to the same hometown, or maybe you cook the same foods because there's a familiarity to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people that grow up in a very toxic home, like if there's a lot of abuse and there's drug addiction and there's all these things taking place, they're normalizing chaos in their life, right? So that becomes their norm, right? So the core of a personality disorder is basically when there's healthy things in your life, and people do this to a degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's healthy things in your life, you're going to sabotage it because you have all this chaotic energy, and then you're just going to blow it up and gaslight the whole situation.
Interesting.
Right? So that is the core of what a personality disorder is, right? So once you start looking at you keep staying years, it becomes days and months and years, and you keep justifying being in this toxic environment, you're internalizing it, and you're literally developing a personality disorder state. And that's what I'm kind of saying. That's why it looks like a drug addiction, and you're really becoming unhealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give some practical examples, maybe from case studies, from experiences?
So for example, one person that was in a really toxic, borderline abusive relationship, right? Mm-hmm. Once they got into a healthy relationship with someone, like a person was really healthy, how do you think they treated that person?
Not good.
They started abusing that person, right? Versus man, I have work to do. I should go see a therapist. This person is supporting me. They would sabotage. And then they started cheating and doing all these things, pushing this person away, even though this person is really supportive and understanding to them. That is a form of self-sabotage because they're feeding the chaos, right? So even though they went from the abuse to kind of being the abuser, it looks like it's a healthier transition. They're still in that same pathology of chaos, right? And then when a good opportunity comes, they're constantly feeling chaotic. And then to address the chaos, they sabotage, because this is the core of a personality disorder. Like if things were really chaotic in this room right now, how would we feel on the inside?
Chaotic.
Like, oh my God, this is crazy, but it's calm right now, right? So it's calm. So we feel calm, right? A personality disorder is the opposite. When things are calm on the outside, they feel chaotic on the inside. When things are chaotic on the outside, they feel calm on the inside. Thus, it's a personality disorder.
Interesting.
Does that make sense? And so like these unhealthy dynamics to degrees start to form these personalities that self-sabotage.
Yeah. I can relate this to case studies as well as personal experiences, but I want to share maybe a less extreme version of this or what this is before it gets to that place. But I also want to take you to the early years of my marriage. My first marriage was very much that, where I had already developed this kind of disorder where the reason why I perceived that I was in, like, I didn't really think I was in something, even though people were telling me, like, this is a really bad relationship. You need to exit this relationship. But to me, it felt normal because of the chaos that I was surrounded by when I was growing up. So to see that my own home mirrored that, it was comfortable. And the moments where I was most uncomfortable was when it was quiet. When there was moments where I could actually reflect and start to think of whether this is healthy or not, that was when I was incredibly uncomfortable. Because as long as I could focus on the chaos, as long as I see the chaos, then I felt like this mirrored something that I had experienced. So it kind of just kept going that way, And when you don't have the chaos, you go and you try and
then you create the chaos,
drum something up,
and then internally, oh, it's chaotic. Okay, I'm calm again, and that's what a personality disorder means.
So it's a wild way to perceive that. The other side of this, though, before it gets to that place, and this is where we can kind of draw on personal experiences, but along with all the case studies, is that it sounds like justification. Like someone comes to you and says, this is an unhealthy relationship. And you say back to them, oh no, you just really need to get to know them better. Or I don't think your boyfriend really likes me. Oh no, you just need to spend more time with them. Or, what did, Samantha mean when she said that? Oh, she didn't mean anything by that. That was just something that she said. It's this constant outward justification toward the people around you that what you're doing is okay. And if you're honest with yourself, it's also an inward justification. You're also, in saying the words, you're trying to convince yourself, and you even say them in your mind. And so before it becomes the personality disorder, it's just this constant trying to justify why it's okay.
No, it makes sense. And then, hey, you're isolating yourself instead of like, yeah, I know I am, and having a two-way conversation. It's no, this is fine. I'm choosing to do this. And now that pathology is starting to form. Chaos, there be someone showing me love, but internally I'm rejecting it, and I'm supporting the chaos, and that's where the personality starts to form.
Yeah, what's so weird about this though? In Utah, it was a piece of kind of common relationship advice and relationship culture is don't make friends with people that are not friends of your marriage. Like this kind of term of like, if they're not a friend to your marriage, they're not a friend. It was a one-way piece of guidance, meaning there's really no subtlety or nuance in it. It's simply, if you're not a friend of my marriage, you're not a friend. But in an unhealthy relationship, the people that love you, they can't be friends of your marriage or of your romance or of this thing that you have. It's impossible.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is it's like birds of a feather flock together, right? So if you're in a really unhealthy relationship, unless you have other people that are in similar dynamics, you have no one to relate to. So that's part of the isolation, right?
That's the next piece that's funny about it, is that you gravitate towards, you disconnect yourself from these people who are genuinely your friends and family, but you're perceiving them as they're not friends of my marriage. And then instead, you go and you make friends with people that are having the same problems as you are.
Exactly. You're denouncing the healthy for the unhealthy, justifying this relationship, which is at its core chaotic.
Yeah.
Which is developing the chaotic personality.
And that was exactly the pattern that, my ex and I had, was that we I lost all of my existing family and friends. And then I accepted new friends that we would all talk about the same stuff. You know, oh my gosh, can you believe that my wife did this? Or can you believe that, this is going on? Or, yeah, all the complaints. You just go and you make friends with the people that are in your exact same situation. And then we all sit there convincing each other that it's normal and that it's healthy. It's such a strange thing. Like, how could that advice...
Well, yeah, it's so black or white.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we don't support your marriage because it's unhealthy and we care about you, that means we're not friends. We're friends because I care about you and I'm trying to help you.
Yeah. I mean, what they're trying to say is like, there are those people in your life that maybe they love you and they're not okay with you being married to someone else. They want you to have an affair. They want you to do whatever. I mean, that's true. Like, those are not friends. Those are people that are not, they're not friends of your marriage and they're not friends. But when you take away the nuance from that advice, then in reality, you're just setting everybody up for more of the same, more personality disorders, more, of this long-term torturous marriage and divorce process because they think that it's normal.
The multi-generational transmission of pain.
Yeah.
It's just generation to generation, the same bad information over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, amigo. I think we got this one.
I think so, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
We hope you all enjoyed the podcast. If you did, we'd love for you to do a couple things for us. Number one, it'd be awesome if you jumped onto iTunes. You can leave a review for the 12-Week Relationships podcast. That helps us out a ton, especially for other listeners that are trying to figure out if what we're saying is BS or not.
There you go.
If you have a negative review, don't post it there. Send it to our Instagram, which we haven't had yet. So you guys have been amazing. We do get insights and questions and feedback, which we love from all of you. So if you want to give us those questions, insights, critique, anything, hop onto Instagram. You can send us a message at 12-Week Relationships. We do read all the messages and we put them into future topics. We take your guidance. That's why there's captions now and all sorts of stuff, because people were like, hey, I'd really appreciate if you could caption the videos.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we're also on TikTok. And by the way, on TikTok and Instagram, that's where you're going to find little bite-sized pieces of information and quotes that are just nice and easy to share with friends, all that kind of stuff. The podcast is obviously the place where we get to go into each of these topics in long form. That's really it. You can jump onto 12weekrelationships.com if you guys are interested in coaching with Dr. Glen. He does have a few slots that are coming up available in a few months. We have a wait list and we're just reaching out to people to fill those slots as they come. And for those that we can't get onto his calendar, we have online coaching that's going to be coming soon. If you sign up for the newsletter, you'll not only be made aware of that, but I'll also send you little tidbits and nice little emails from time to time. No spam, no junk, we promise. But that's it.
Awesome. Thank you.
See you guys next time. Peace.